All right, so we're now moving into probably one of the more critical areas in psychology, certainly in this class, and it's not coincidental that it strikes right in the middle of our semester, more or less. And it's one of those things where we have been looking at anatomy and the function and the mechanics of things and so forth, and now we're moving to higher order aspects of our functioning. And so what we're going to look at in these next few videos is the whole idea behind what makes us so adaptable, and that's just the fact that we can learn things. And that's key in terms of what makes us unique, is the fact that we can learn. And so there are different components to that, and I would put to you, how do you learn? The question how. And a lot of you might say, well, I look something over and over again and I try to memorize it. Well, the question is that learning, or is that just memorizing? What does learning actually mean? Excuse me, is the question. And so again, as always, how do we define learning? And what the key component is to understanding learning itself is one major thing, and that is change. Evidence of learning is found in changed behavior. Now, I can ask somebody, so you got it learned. Are you learning it? Have you learned it? And they will say, let me write this down for a second here, changed behavior. And they will say, yeah, I think I got it. And then when I put it to a test, and what we find is that they really haven't learned it as well as they think. So learning is a relatively permanent change in an organism's behavior due to experience. And that's one of the keys. Experience can be exposure to the material, it can be any number of things, but experience is the backdrop by which we learn things itself. So one of the things that makes us unique is our capacity to learn and to adapt. So learn is one of the things that certainly makes us unique, which leads to adaptability, and which also leads to flexibility. And we will also get into how we actually apply our information. When you think about Proverbs, and Proverbs talks about knowledge and wisdom. And wisdom, in a lot of ways, is evidence of learning. I take the concepts, I take the things that I have absorbed through experience and other things, and I apply them in a situation in a effective and targeted fashion. And that is something that we refer to as learning. So one of the key components to understanding learning is the next kind of concept. And that's the whole idea of associations, which later takes us to associative learning. But we are, by nature, build our experience on the associations and the connections we make in our experience. And these associations where we connect events that occur in sequence are part of our tendency to detect patterns, which takes us back really to the Gestaltists, because they detect patterns. We are by nature beings that love to see things that are orderly, that are closed, and that there's a pattern that we understand, and that is very much a part of this idea of associations. We look at two events that occur close in time, and we presume that one causes the other. That may or may not be the case, because obviously when we turn our attention to something, it is a slice in time rather than the entire time. And with experience, we begin to understand that what we're seeing is one step in a longer process rather than the step that starts everything out. So essentially, these associations form the basis for what we refer to as associative learning. And the more accurately we detect these associations and begin to predict the world around us, the more adaptable we become, and we can start using different processes to do that. So associative learning is where two stimuli or a response and its consequences are connected. So in this case, which we'll talk about, is two stimuli are connected. Or when we talk about operant conditioning, we have a response made and a consequence. So not only is it two stimuli, but it's also a response that we make, and then we test it out. We get a certain consequence to it, and we conclude that these two things are connected. If I do the response again, I will get the desired consequence, and that is something we refer to as associative learning. Both of these are good examples of that. Now, the other kind of learning that is built on this is something we refer to as cognitive learning, and this is more formed on the basis of observation, and we acquire mental information that guides our behavior. And it's stored and recalled to be able to guide our behavior, or we observe it and we learn it vicariously. In other words, we learn it through another person, observational learning. And so we learn it through another person, which is every bit as valid. If you've ever watched kids, one of their first attempts at learning a behavior is imitating someone. Ironically, what you will see also in the world around us is people imitating some of the Olympic athletes. For example, I had a friend of mine who said that his little boy, they went to the pool, and his little boy got up to the edge of the pool and did the Michael Phelps flap. You know how he loosens up before he goes into the pool for his swim meet. And his little boy did the same thing and then dived into the pool and promptly did a belly flop. So it didn't quite work, but it was certainly a good example of imitation learning, which is the beginning point of a lot of learning. And it's part of this observational idea, which is extremely powerful. We gain a lot of information by observational learning.